Good evening and welcome to the 6th episode of Python CodeBytes. Today we're going to be looking at a concept called the return from a function. So 2 episodes ago we had a brief look at the function, what it means and how it allows us to create very efficient code. We then had a little look at parameters, how we can pass information into those functions for us to use. And today we're going to look at something called a return. Now, a return allows us to return information from a function, which is very useful as it allows us to actually use information that a function has calculated rather than the function doing something with that information for us and then us not being able to see it again. It might not make great sense right now, but once we've written a little bit of code, you'll understand better, hopefully. So let's get started writing. I've created a new window. We're just going to save this inside of our teaching folder. Tutorials, Python, CodeBytes, and I'm going to save this as return.py. There we are. So all we're going to do first is we're going to define a new function to print out the result of adding 2 numbers. And we're going to call this function add. And we're going to pass in 2 parameters, an x and a y, just like we did last week. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to say print x plus y. Okay. Call the add function and pass in some values. And we're just going to say add 3, 4. And when I run this, you'll see that we have a value of 7 that's printed out on the screen. Now, that's all very well and good, but what if I don't want to print out the value of 7? What if I want to know what the value is when I do this function? What if I actually want to be able to use the value? For example, I wanted to store it in a variable and then do maybe a subtract on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to define a new function called subtract. And we're going to take an x and a y in again. And this time, instead of printing our x minus y, as we would to do a subtraction, I'm going to say return, and that's our keyword. And I'm going to return the value of x minus y. And let's write some comments here. So define a function to return the subtraction of 2 numbers. And we're just going to say here that we are returning x minus y. Okay? Now, if I call this subtract function and passing a value of 7 and 3, okay? Then when I run this, nothing's going to happen. We're still running our add function and we're printing out what the answer of x plus y. And we're doing a subtract, but we're not actually doing anything with the information. So what could I do here? Well, I could pass subtract 7, 3, the actual function call with the parameters into the print function, and that will print the answer out. Well, how does that work? Well, basically, whatever the return statement here is actually sort of put in place of whatever we have here. So if I have x minus y, well, I'm passing a value of 7 in for x, and I'm passing a value of 3 in for y. So effectively, I'm actually printing here. It effectively replaces that subtract call with that bit of code, 7 minus 3, because x would be 7 and y would be 3. So if I print 7 minus 3, it's printing 4, but I can do that with this subtract function. I don't need to state specifically that I want to do 7 minus 3. I can use this subtract function. This is really useful because what it'll actually allow me to do is I could store this in a new variable called a, let's call it. And let's change our add function so that we are returning instead of printing as well. And then we'll say return x plus y. And now what I can do is I can store the value of add in a and the value of b, the subtraction in b, and I can say print a and print b. And this is just going to print 7 and 4. But I could also say something like print a plus b. And logically, this is 7 plus 4 because A is the value returned from add 3, 4. Now, add 3, 4 passes in a value of 3 to x and a value of 4 to y. We're doing 3 plus 4, which is 7. So effectively, here we're doing 3 plus 4 plus b. And for this subtract, b is equal to the value returned from subtract, passing in the value of 7 for x, and y for the value, 3 for the value of y. So effectively, b here would be equal to 7 minus 3. And another lovely thing we can do is we don't need to even store this value. What we could do is I could say, because I've passed in two ints here, the type of ints, I'm returning a type of int because an int plus an int is an int. So I could actually do a print of add 7, 1 plus b, and that will work perfectly fine as well. So 7 and 1 added together is 8. b is equal to 7 minus 3, which is 4, and 8 plus 4 is 12. So you can start to see now why functions are really useful. They're allowing us to actually pass information from one place and also return information from there as well. It's been a bit of a longer tutorial tonight. It's quite a complex topic, this, but I think we've covered it quite well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week for our following tutorial.